And we're back. Look at that. It's like a whole minute worth of break. Hi, good morning. How's everybody doing?
Moderately.
Wait, was that all good things that happened all at once right there? How's everybody doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Good. Doing good. Trying to figure out, make sure that we're live LinkedIn. Did anybody get it pop up?
Yeah, I got it to pop up, I think. Let me check. Yeah. I'm trying to get everything side by side here.
That's fine. We always spend a few minutes being a disorganized mess. It's my favorite.
Well, it's still kind of new.
A little, yeah. So if anybody's curious as to the guest that we have today, I'd like to welcome Evan Akin or Akin?
It's Akin, actually.
Wow, on all fronts. Yes.
It happens all the time.
That's awesome.
Rarely does anyone ever get it the first time.
Oh, good. I'm not alone.
You're not.
And Cytisus Eurydice. Why can't I say Evan's last name? But that, I got that.
Now I'm offended.
You should be.
Well, you've had more practice.
I'm offended for you, sir. Okay. To be fair. Evan is joining us today from Recorded Future. Wow, look at that. It's like a whole minute worth of break. Hi, good morning. How's everybody? Huh? Is that me playing in the background somewhere? That's weird. Look, I'm like, I'm a part of my own future right here. Anyway, and Cytisus Eurydice is joining us on behalf of and representative slightly of Innocent Lives Foundation.
Woohoo!
Cy, would you like to talk a little bit about what the Innocent Lives Foundation is and what it does?
Always, but apologies for the vacuum yet again. The Innocent Lives Foundation is a nonprofit organization that is focused on identifying bad behavior online by child predators and helping to build cases to turn those over to law enforcement. I don't know how to get into any of these chats, but would love someone to put in the link if you can, Rachel.
I will do that. Don't worry. I will make sure it's there. And Evan, I've grabbed you for this talk because you spearheaded some really incredible research earlier this year. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So for Pride Month this year, our team at Recorded Future decided to do sort of a preliminary landscape looking at threats against the LGBT community, particularly in 3 areas. So we conducted an app study where we analyzed all the different privacy policies and known security issues of the most popular social apps within the LGBT community. And another section was dedicated to criminal targeting. So we used Recorded Future's database to sort of look for any historical breaches or leaks of data from several LGBTQ related apps, as well as just mainstream dating apps. I think we lost Rachel, did we?
She's back.
Rachel. She will always be with us.
Yeah, she's always there. Yeah, and then so that was the app study part, and then the largest part of the study was dedicated to what we called international targeting, but that mostly just looked at very different regions in all the different ways government uses data to target and surveil or censor LGBT people. And so it was a pretty extensive report. It kind of laid the groundwork for further reports that we hope to do every year during Pride Month. It was exciting, and yeah, I'm really proud of it and glad Recorded Future got behind it.
That's awesome. So censor, what do you mean by censor?
Censorship, that was mostly, depending on the country or region, it could just be censorship on media. So like regular television or online posting, or to blocking of apps, to sharing content. It varied from region to region, especially with its, I guess, level of enforcement and strictness. So like Russia has a law on the books that limit the promotion of gay propaganda to children, but it's very vague. And what that means could, just be like sharing like, here's a hotline for any gay like teen being bullied could ultimately be considered gay propaganda because it's supporting that kind of lifestyle. So yeah, it ranges from that to just banning gay relations on television.
Oh, wow.
Which you find in several other countries. Yeah.
Gotcha. So how did you get started down this research rabbit hole?
Well, it started with an idea when we were in our internal LGBT group, and we were just looking for ideas of like how we can, celebrate Pride. And I said, hey, why don't we, look at security threats against the LGBT community? And then someone on Insikt liked that idea, told their team, and then within 2 days, there was 20 people signed up to help out on this report.
Wow.
And it kind of, what I thought was going to be like maybe a three-page note turned into a 50-page document with plans for further research. So it kind of spun out of, like, I don't want to say spun out of control, but grew very large really quickly. And it was exciting. And I can't wait to see what comes of it.
So from your perspective, what was the most alarming threat that you found?
Just the sort of lack of awareness generally around what kind of data is being collected and stored from these apps, and the lack of transparency about what happens to this data once they collect it. Very few of the apps were very forthcoming with what they do with that data, or even what data they do collect. And there was only one or two that really made any overt efforts to protect that data or offer choices to randomize or obfuscate their personal details. So I thought that was pretty concerning, especially since a lot of these users live in countries and regions where it is illegal to be gay, and these apps and their data make it very easy for those particular countries to not only identify them, but also track them and find out where they are.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just terrifying for that community, but
yeah,
that a similar tracking and follow could be used for anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
depending on whatever vertical the person that wants to track you wants to use.
Yeah, this is not just an issue for vulnerable groups. This is an issue for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that. And privacy policies. Okay. I definitely went down a serious rabbit hole earlier this week into probably 150 privacy policies and how I got there, right? Because there's only this many popular apps that everybody uses for social media. Is you go into each one of those, right? And then it says, well, we are sending your data to a third party, right? And here's the list of third parties. And then you click it and it's like, here's over 100 for every app, where this data is going to. And then the waters get even more muddy once you start going through each individual one of those privacy policies and terms of service and all this other stuff, what it is that they're doing. So you've got your social media apps, right, that everybody's using, and then they're collecting certain things about you. How long you're on the platform was a big one. Timestamps, what ads you would interact with, and for how long. And it was down to content also. It wasn't just things that you would click. It was how long you were looking at it. So you scroll through your feed and you'd stop on something to look at it. It logs that. It logs that not just for there's not like a trigger either that logs. It's like, oh, start logging what they're doing. No, they're logging you constantly, but that's what they're looking for, right? Whenever they deliver metrics back to their customers, because you're not the customer, you're the thing that's being farmed. Okay, let's be real clear. You were being propagated and cultivated and then harvested, like very much so like a crop. So you are the product. Anyway, so for their customers, that's what they promise to deliver through the third-party vendors that buy the data from the social media apps that you subscribe to or like to use, whatever terminology makes you feel better. And then they're the marketers on the other side of the third-party apps, right? So you see how like confusing and convoluted this gets, that by the time your data gets from you, what, you know, your behavioral analytics gets from you all the way to who's actually going to be using them. There's like 2 or 3 parties in the middle there that your data has gone through a variance of privacy policies and terms of service and usage, you know, whatever. This is what we're going to do with your stuff that we didn't, you know, yes, the social media platform asked you for and said, here's our privacy policy, subscribe to it. But then how do you responsibly go about making sure that, you know, what happens to your data after that? Right? Because part of the privacy policy is we're going to sell your behavioral analytics. We're going to watch you, right? It's like somebody in the corner of your room for the rest of your life with a notepad taking down, they don't sleep, you do, and they know when you do. And they take it down, notebook style, and then give it to other people. Like, that's freaky. That freaks me out.
Yeah, it's almost like Santa Claus. You know when you were sleeping, you know when you're awake, you know, but without good, you know, background. So, Evan, I got a question for you.
Okay.
When you went through and you found in many of these areas how that data was being culled, right? Were you able to, in your intelligence, be able to pull up any links or combinations of pulling that data together and seeing how it was, you know, maybe being pulled together from different sources?
We don't have any identifiable links there, but because we looked specifically at data related to 11 apps that are popular within the LGBT community. And for the most part, the data that we did find on the dark web and other forums were logins. But the most concerning part of that was 6% of those logins were employees of those apps. Which, if still, you know, valid and allowed access into any sort of secure network on within those apps, that could allow any threat actor to potentially gain access to user data, or any of that they wanted. But that, of course, you know, is just a potential issue. Doesn't mean it's actually happened. But links of how that data has been associated with other databases, we didn't identify there. But one thing that I do know of is that because all of these companies will say that, oh, we anonymize this data that's sent to these marketers. Oh, it's no way to trace back to you. It's just a number that's randomized. But the moment any of that data is ever connected to location data, which is always picked up by a lot of these dating apps like Tinder or Grindr, it's no longer anonymous. You can't anonymize location data, or it's not for very long, because the moment someone's able to identify, hey, you go to this apartment building every night and this, you know, office building every day, it's really easy to, figure out who you are.
Not to mention the pictures that people are posting constantly for geolocation.
Exactly. But that's another thing that just I know from threat intel widely is people do not actually add geolocation data to their photos or tag location, mostly what they put on social media, as much as they used to. But that doesn't necessarily mean that their location data isn't being collected. And so you might think that you're not sharing that, but it's being collected through other methods, like these dating apps.
No way. When I take a picture by the street sign down the street, there's definitely no way to find me.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's like once they know who you are, and then they have like through that anonymous identifier that's connected to all these other anonymous identifiers, they're able to quickly, detail, hey, all this data is linked to you. And then that opens the door to all sorts of threats and spearfishing like avenues. Yeah, it's a world of, I guess, scary opportunities.
Yeah,
Yes.
and also the thought that immediately comes to my mind, and Sai can probably go into this in a lot greater detail, but and I'm going to try to simplify it for some members of our audience who are probably like, what are you talking about, right? There are lovely programs out there like Recon NG and things of that sort, to where if you have an API key where you can, for some of these other programs like Facebook or whatever, right, you can use a key to, instead of having to go through and look at all the pictures, you can just have the computer script and extract that information right away. I mean, that's the beauty of APIs. If you are pulling from Recon NG, which is a kind of a cool little utility, and Sai, where'd you go?
I think she was moving. So I clicked her off for a second until she comes back. I can see her over time. She comes back.
Well, yeah, Recon NG is a cool utility because you can pull from multiple sources, right? And Evan, this is kind of getting into where we're talking about that. If you can pull from those multiple sources, what keeps you from like seeding some of it so you can see where it pops up in the different areas? And Sai's probably an expert at this. Are you able to talk yet, Sai?
I'm an expert in nothing.
No. Nothing. Well, you're frozen, that's for sure.
I just do cool stuff. Never claimed I'm an expert. Oh no!
There you go. You're moving now. You're moving now. I caught up, I think. I hope. Maybe. A little bit. Yeah, it's yeah.
Okay.
You're a good person. There you go.
I'm not an expert. I just do cool stuff, and sometimes it works, is really what I like to say. So speaking on my own behalf, one of the things I tend to do in my spare time, whatever that is do these investigations where I'm digging the context exclusive. Really interesting what people just free reign like on a farm.
Sai is saying lots of important things that are coming in like a robot. And then we watched her very slowly put her head back and throw her hands up. It's awesome.
The problem is she forgot all her Faraday cage elements that she's been working on her house, and so when she goes out on the porch, it just doesn't work with the bean.
It does not. Can you guys hear me now?
We can.
Okay, so let me try this again. What I was saying is that people tend to post all sorts of things online. And what I do in my spare time, whatever that is hunt down this kind of information, mostly on the dark net, occasionally on the clear net. And this is just talking from myself, not necessarily ILF, right? And what I love is that moms are the best and worst at this, because you're always posting information about people, pictures, graduation pictures, where people went to school, where people live. My kid just moved into this new apartment, and then you have the street number and name in the corner, and it's great. So even if people aren't leaving the metadata behind, or they're editing it so that metadata gets changed in the picture, people are leaving a trail all over the place. It's a lot of fun to hunt down. It can be very interesting in a very long afternoon.
And I'm not gonna lie, you guys. If you follow my Facebook, y'all know my kids. Like you've seen them all over the place, and you know I've theorized about that. Like, what's gonna happen to my kids that were born in the internet, right? Like that's basically what it is. I wasn't, right? So I have to go and rely on some dusty old albums, maybe some pictures that I didn't cut up as a young child, trying to make different projects out of family pictures. But like, my kids probably will have a picture of themselves a week for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And But then again, I know what I'm getting into as far as information I share about myself.
Yes, but do you know what they're getting into with the
No.
information you're sharing about them?
Absolutely not. And I have no idea how to forecast what that's going to look like in 20 years.
It's
and how
almost impossible, right? It's almost impossible.
it is.
Then added to that, though, is the part that Evan brought up in that whole community is getting labeled as whatever. I mean, anything that you get labeled as, if it is not what is considered acceptable by whomever,
Mhm.
right? Whether it's part of the community that he is investigating, or whether it's left or right, or
Yeah.
hates lakes, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So Evan, were you able to take that farther in investigating and trying to see any of that cross information happening?
I mean, yeah, there was several instances of several countries in Africa, in Europe, and Asia using social media platforms as well as dating apps just to compile lists of known LGBT people as well as their supporters and activists, and they use this to arrest them in some places. Others, they used it to entrap them by knowing what they're into, and then finding, engaging with them in different chat rooms or instant messages to get them to come out into a public square, maybe in drag, which subsequently, allowed them to arrest the person and put them in jail. So it's like there's different ways this data, especially for vulnerable groups like the LGBT community, that this data can be used against them, especially if it's easily tracked and allows a government to identify who they are and where they are. And I think there needs to be a greater emphasis or pressure put on these companies to make sure that this data is not only secured, but also that users are given a chance to really anonymize themselves. Because on an app like Grindr, you might be able to anonymize yourself, but you're not really anonymizing your geolocation, or your location data, which, as we've come to all know, that's probably the one piece of data that you can't anonymize, no matter how hard you try. If they have more than a few data points linked to a single person.
And the reason why this data is collected, right, is for advertisers. So it's at the appetite of a marketer. It's the things that they want to know about you that they think are going to help change your behavior to purchase or buy something, right? That's what makes these apps free, right? Is that they're farming you as a consumer. They want to know what your consumer behavior is, and then they collect it, correlate it based on things like geolocation and all those other things that you're like, oh, well, that is personally identifiable. There was actually down my rabbit hole of fun. A lot of the privacy policies say we do not collect identifiable information. We collect IP addresses. And then, so then you take that and you plug it into some other things that you can plug it into to figure out how that's tracked. And it gives longitude and latitude, you guys.
Do they not know what an IP address is?
I plugged my longitude and latitude that it delivered based on that into Google Maps. And it was, it wasn't my living room, which is where I am, but it was my driveway.
Yeah.
This is my driveway. That was scary.
Yeah, it's super scary. And it's even more terrifying when all that data is then packaged with other identifiable, like personal information that a lot of these apps collect. Because there's one of the apps that we looked at got in trouble, I think it was in Sweden, because one of their agencies there was the ones to discover that they were doing it. We're taking their users' HIV statuses and selling that to marketers. So,
wow.
So there's just like And so I think that people forget all the type of information that they provide, not just, Facebook, but also dating apps, like just, sexual preference, what you're into, what you like to eat. It can go, from very, mundane to, a little spicy, but all that's being collected by this app and then sold to marketers. Yeah, spicy, whatever we're doing.
That's super important too, because like I mentioned before, do a lot of darknet stuff. When I'm making a darknet persona, those are the items I want if I'm going to try to become a real person online. But if I'm also going out and trying to create a phishing application, that's the details I want, because now I know what I'm using to target someone. So not only is it like how to find these people, how to target them for ads and all that, but you become a victim of cyber attacks.
Yeah.
Constantly. And it's really, what do you define as personal identifiable information?
Yeah.
Because what you define it as and what I define it as might be different. Somebody's going to be like, well, my name's on everything, so that's not personal identifiable information. But if you have my name, who else does? It's real. That's going to be personal and identifiable. So it really is, what is that definition? And if you're not giving that up front, then sure, maybe you're not collecting anything personally identifiable, like an IP address.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's also the aspects of, if you take it to a different level, used by adversaries and things like that, which goes all the way back to the early days of the Cold War, is that if you can take that information and find anything bad or anything like their current financial status or things of that sort, that can be used to leverage people to do behaviors that you want them to do, right?
Yeah.
And that takes it into, so you can't just think that, oh, I'm here in the US, I'm safe and all that's good. And well, marketers, they're just getting that marketing information. What do I care? Depending on how deep you go down that rabbit hole and what you give out, that can be very useful information to manipulate.
Oh, yeah.
Because
yeah.
That's what's getting scary these days, is that people aren't really thinking enough steps down the trail.
Yeah, that's true. And then they're also not thinking about people who aren't them, right? So like, look, we're all of age, sound mind mostly. Some days I have bad days. Okay, I'm not gonna lie.
But what sound?
What is that anyway? I don't know. It's chemically induced state of being that I try to get to every day. But no. So, right, we're all of age, pretty much sound of mind. Pretty much. Okay. What about the 10-year-old that uses his or her own device that mom and dad got for them last Christmas? What about that? What about that kid?
It's totally fine to use your dog's name as your password. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Right? Totally fine. And if somebody finds out, just change your dog's name. So it and then you go through some of these, like, poured over 150 privacy policies in the last 3 days. Totally fun. I don't think anybody ever do that, but I do. This was every privacy policy that my personal data was going through, like being filled, all of it. And one of them was like, we do not intend to collect data from 16 and under, but if we do, we're going to try real hard to get rid of it. But you have to notify us too. So then I'm like, great. I've got 12 nieces and nephews, and most of them are all of age to own or have been given their own type of, let's connect the internet device, right? Because you can't have a social life anymore, especially now, it's plugged into some sort of social media, dating app, something, right? You just can't. You're going to be real lonely. Like, you got to go out there and do it. Right. So the whole point is not to terrify people to shutting off of their Facebook accounts, though, boy, howdy, couldn't we make some people really sad if we all just one day canceled our accounts all together collectively? Like, I don't know. We might want to look at doing that later. Anyway, We're not doing
Down to her social.
Thank you, Facebook. I love you. It's okay. It's a 10-year-old own device in hand is now being clocked by an algorithm. Okay.
Yep.
What do 10-year-olds look up, search for? What do they pause on long enough to change that algorithm's behavior as to what is best to market to a 10-year-old? Okay. So what if you have a 10-year-old that body image issues? And now they're looking up dieting and exercising and all of these things. Now all of the ads are also reflective of that. And I don't know about you guys, but most of the ads that are like, get fit, get healthy, are not body positive. Okay. They're just not. So now Susie Q, Billy Bob, Joe, whoever is constantly being flashed content of what a perfect body image is supposed to like. Oh, and on top of that, they're also isolated.
And if you carry that further, right, just because of the way it goes, and Evan may have even seen some of this, then you get bullying taking place, right? So in the day and age of where everybody has their cell phones everywhere, including problems that they have in K-12 arenas with, taking pictures in locker rooms and things of that sort, and then using that to carry on just those items that you're talking about, whether it be body image or whether it be opinion, right? And can label people in a much harsher way than we have ever been able to label people before. It's a one thing to say, I think you're fill in the blank, ugly, strange, weird. But then to have that label stick on the internet to where, it can't be just the sticks and stones, because now that label is affixed.
Right. I mean, we're always talking about emotional and mental health, and forever, not ever. Okay. So for my whole life, there has always been some story somewhere on the news or on the internet that's, marketing campaigns are insert whatever community here, right? Or whatever minority here. Now we're doing that at a large scale and trusting a unempathetic, non-sympathizing algorithm to do it. And we signed up for it. We're like, please come judge me with no context whatsoever. Thanks. Like, just what? Yeah, that's great. So I don't know. How do we, you can't fix all of that, right? We're all going to keep soldiering on. This is live on, LinkedIn and YouTube at the moment. I'm here. I signed up and I'm telling you all of these dark and scary things. But it's about making responsible, formed decisions about what it is that you're doing, so that as you scroll through, or that pang of sadness happened to you from acute depression or anxiety disorders or anything else, go set your device down and go take a walk, because it's probably your device's fault. Okay, like, just sit down, walk away, look at some trees and birds, right? Without being, because the trees and birds aren't going to tell you to buy this outfit, or else your friends are going to make fun of you. Like, really? Is that what you're doing, Sai, right now?
I mean, parrots might.
If you train them.
Well, then there's that whole other area, right, Rachel? I'm going to share that XKCD, my favorite.
Yeah. Hello, welcome to our house. Thanks for inviting us. Alexa, order green corn. Alexa, confirm purchase. I'm visiting a new house. It's good to check. True.
I have a friend who does that constantly on video calls. but it is not as innocent as cream corn. So please shut off your listening devices.
Well, we got a mic in the house. That's the point. And Evan, does any of that come up?
Thankfully, well, not thankfully, we didn't look into that, but that is something that we probably should.
Evan's like off to the side going checklist.
Okay. Again, I'm plugging my Alexa right now, but no, yeah, no, that is definitely something I think worth looking into, because that is all these always on devices. They're always listening. Where's that data being stored? I mean, all data is secure until it's not. So, yeah, that's something to always be mindful of.
Yeah, and the difficulty with those things once they get through, especially like with the metadata, then you're not just looking at the people, you're looking at their friends, their connections, who they work with, all that kind of stuff. And in some of those countries that you're talking about, that takes it to a different level. Or in our situation, adversaries that are trying to leverage information, that takes it to a different level. Down to, well, Stano, I think we lost Rachel there.
Oh no. Yes, she is frozen.
She's frozen.
Pixels are a good look. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
But while she's gone, you did mention a good point about the kind of hinted at, like maybe this data, especially on these dating apps, being a national security risk due to their potential for being used for spear phishing or social engineering. And the U.S. government, I think, would agree with you on that, because I think it was a couple of years ago they forced Grindr to be resold back to a U.S.-based corporation because I think it was like half a decade ago, Grindr was bought by a Chinese corporation. I believe it was Tencent, or not Tencent.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. Just, China-based corporation bought Grindr. And then after, I think, the U.S. government realized the potential for all that data to be used nefariously, they used the national security law to enforce its sale to a U.S.-based corporation. So that is a concern. It's being recognized, I think, by the government. And I think, as I said before, it's like, if the U.S. government is concerned, you might want to be too.
And and there's a lot to that too, because a lot of people say, oh, that's conspiracy theory. They go off into, but in reality, it really doesn't matter which party. It's still data that can be used. And the one analogy that I kind of talk with students is that if you've got some data that is being misused here in the States, you can bring up lawsuits. You can do something about it. You can get the press upset, right? But if you are a company in some other nations that don't quite believe the way we do, they can just basically say, I want that data. Thank you. It's either that or, you're
or just, that goes back to like where your data is stored and why it's important and why that does matter, because wherever your data is stored, it's subject to all the laws and legislation of that country.
And in some other countries, law and legislation can have a very different concept than what we think of laws and legislation.
It could.
No one ever disagrees ever. Doesn't happen.
Yeah. So those are important aspects to remember about all this.
Yeah, and we have to be careful. Because just point out there was a massive hack with several years back now of the whole government database of everyone who's employed by the government.
Right? Oh, the OPM hack. Is that what you're talking about? Yes. That was
Yeah.
very bad.
Trying to be nice about it. But yeah, that hack to where all the data went out to some folks that we really would rather not have that data. But when you take that and you combine it with the stuff that we always worry about in education and things of that sort, is then you hack some major universities, and then you have not only everybody who has that data, but you know which ones have bio skills, which ones have math skills, which ones have, and then when you now combine social media with that, that becomes a very useful, very effective database.
Yeah, it allows.
Oh, go on.
I was just about to say it allows for like a social engineering graph for threat actors to use. Yeah.
So for YouTube, it looks like the feed hung. Might be because we lost our lovely Rachel for a moment. But I was gonna say that. Sorry, she's yelling. So an interesting thing that this kind of boils down to is at one point a few years ago, I started reading about these attacks going on with deepfakes, and they were targeting international students primarily. But you also hear stories about this with general kidnapping stories, where people were identifying individuals, contacting them, saying you
right now,
Cool.
hopefully. So I'm pretty sure I must have made way too many people mad at the mafia.
Did they just cut your internet?
Oh man, they did. Let's see. I was like, what am I gonna do? So I ran around for like 5 minutes, like a chicken without my head, and then freaked out and was like, nope. Oh, hey, I have a phone. Brain. Anyway, I hope oh look, everybody else is pending. There's Will.
Hi.
What's up? So what did I miss? Yeah, I'm just waiting on Sai to join back up.
Sai was about to reveal some huge secret, and then she got cut off in the middle.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. She's about to tell everybody where she is.
We're back on YouTube. Yay.
Oh, good. So sorry. So apparently we took too close to home for the powers that be, and we made them mad, and they cut my internet off. Sai is not like pending or anything. Where is she?
Yeah.
You might need to tell her to click join again.
Yeah.
Robert is saying, almost.
We're mostly back. So wait, Evan, can you recap wherever we lost? Can somebody who's watching, Robert, do you know where we left off at, where we got cut off at? Anybody? Let's see what Robert says. Robert's my guy, man. Robert, you're the best.
I do not remember.
No. So we're just going to hang out right here and laugh about how we must have really touched on some sensitive topics, because you guys, my internet never goes out, okay? It just does not happen.
What were we talking about when you cut out?
I don't know. All of a sudden, everybody was like doing the loading wheel of death. And I was like, what happened?
Yeah, so we were talking about the OPM hack, and oh, hey, Sai's back. Yay, Sai. Okay, we left you, Sai, when you were we dropped you when you were starting to make a big wisdom statement there.
You left me, guys. What was I saying? So I was talking about the deepfakes and all the information that you can gather off of online in general. And one of the things that I used to read a lot about is that they would target people and tell them, all right, you're under investigation. We need you to stay put. Do not contact anybody until we contact you. And so that person, wanting to be a good citizen of whatever country, would sit there and not talk to anyone. That included their parents. At the same time, their parents, who were connected to them via Facebook, some social media, would be called out, would be contacted by the same people with a video of their child that was a deep fake taken from things they had posted online saying, we have your child, you need to pay this ransom, or you need to do X, Y, and Z. And so they were using the information from social media and publicly available online, including pictures and voice recordings, or they'd get someone who could sound similar to them and create a video or a picture showing that they had this person to coerce the parents or guardians into paying some kind of ransom fee. Meanwhile, this person is just sitting in their dormitory, not contacting anyone because they think they're getting investigated by the government.
Deepfake ransom.
Yep. Those were rampant at one point. I don't know where they are right now because I haven't followed it in a bit, but those are very interesting stories. I highly recommend you look into them.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. That is scarily clever.
And they do the same thing with the voice. They'll get a parent's number off of Facebook, call saying that this is your child, have someone who may not even sound anything like them screaming in the background, just to be the same gender, and actually get people, their fear response ignores any issues and gets them running with this idea that they've done something or that they have this child. And again, it's another ransom. It's using the information freely available online for a social engineering attack. And it's just, they're crazy. You really have to look into them.
Wow. That's pretty terrifying stuff.
Yeah.
Also, you guys really okay. I'm just
I told
saying.
you that I'm here to scare people. This is why.
Work now. I'm terrified. I'm just like.
This is true. You did. You warned me.
Hopefully, we're not inspiring people.
I know. This will be an awesome video for anyone learning, like wanting to know how to like social engineer.
That's literally any video about all of this stuff.
Yeah, that's all over the place.
Yeah.
Look, I'd never want to teach a bad actor how to do bad things better. And I know that ILF is big on not doing that either. It's a big proponent. So I'm never out here actively trying to teach a bad person how to do bad things in a better way. But in order to train people who are doing the good things to stop the bad people, you have to train them. And how do you differentiate who's watching you? It can be really hard. So
that's one of the characteristics and elements of the range at the college, right? Once we get past COVID here, it's a place where anybody in the community can drop by and hang out, right? And we've got enterprise class equipment and all sorts of stuff to play with. Well, the whole concept that would come up is like, what, you train kids how to hack? Well, yeah, and I hate to break it to you, but it's step-by-step with screenshots on the internet. It's not like it's that difficult to get a hold of. So how about if we just train them along with that, with ethics, and train them on the law, and surround them with mentors that can help point them in a good path and how to make a career out of it, right? That's so much of a better situation. But you nail that on the head, Sai. I mean, what do we do with that, right? Now that we know that all this information is out there, how do you protect the normal public? How do you get enough awareness? And it kind of falls into the other pet peeve of mine is that, we are technology experts, right? Technology experts are part of the problem in that developing a technology so that it has all the nifty features, because that's what sells. They've kind of left out that you have to tweak a lot of knobs and have a lot of good understanding to actually make it safe.
Absolutely. And so my answer to your thing is the answer that I'll give for the next 1,000 years, even though I won't be alive that long, is you have to add it into education. We don't teach people who are learning how to type and go on the internet when they're like 7 years old how to make a good password. or what the difference between a password and multi-factor is. And even if that kid isn't using multi-factor until maybe they're 13, they should still have a good password when they're 7. And it shouldn't be their dog's name and their address. But we're not teaching them that. We're not teaching them the basics of cybersecurity for the home and for personal use. So it's a lot harder when they become adults to figure out what they do and don't know and get them up to speed. It's hard to train adults. Not that they don't want to listen. It's just, it can be a lot more difficult. When you're teaching a kid to type and use Google, why don't you teach them how to make a password?
Yeah, and Evan, how much of that were you seeing being taken advantage of? I mean, you can't tell who's using good passwords and all that kind of stuff, but just in a general sense of internet basics, how much of that vulnerability of lack of awareness was being harnessed in your observations?
I don't know if like we can gauge that per se, but I think there's just a general level that like people don't understand the severity of or how critical it is to have strong passwords or basic cybersecurity knowledge. And I think one of the issues there is that cybersecurity in general is evolving so rapidly. There's new issues to worry about, new attack methods, so like every year there's 10 new things that everybody should be concerned about or worried about. And I think it's just going to continue to change and continue to evolve. And I think along with that, it's just going to be really hard to get some sort of general, these are the basics you need to be concerned about. Because 5 years ago, it was like, let's everybody add a number to your password or a capital letter to your password. And now it's just like, hey, like everybody use a different password per site. And now it's like, we all need a single sign-on or a 2FA. It's everything. The recommendations keep changing, and I think that's kind of hindering people from having sort of like a basic, like baseline that everybody knows and everybody follows.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I don't know.
I definitely agree with that. I think that we can still have a baseline where you do like passphrases. You tell people what not to put in a password.
Yeah.
Don't be password 123. Don't put your dog's name. Don't put your address, your sister, right? But I agree with you. They keep changing, and that becomes an issue over time.
Yeah, and I think also it's just like no matter how many times you tell people don't use a simple word and put 123 at the end of your password, people will do it anyway because it's easy, it's quick, and they think, what do I have to worry about? There's nothing to hide here. And that's why I think it's important for people to discuss these sort of data issues, because if people realize the data that was being collected and was being stored, or was being stored there, and what a criminal could gain access to with that password, they would maybe take it a bit more seriously.
Yeah. I also, as a side rant, love the slight hypocrisy with our basic cybersecurity, because I don't have anything to hide, thus I can put in a weak password because it's easy for me to remember. But anybody who uses something like the Tor browser obviously is being bad because they must have things to hide, even if they're just logging into Facebook like I am. That's my personal little rant. I hate that. But no, I agree with you. It's a core pain of mine. But I think even if we left passwords alone, because they do keep changing, OPSEC is something we could teach kids in an elementary setting without needing to worry about the constant changes, because I don't know at what point we ever changed don't give your birth date and social security number on Facebook.
Very true.
Yeah. I mean, you guys can just take the year out or just put a different year. That'd be okay.
Just change.
Vaguely describe.
I don't think I ever had an account online that I ever put my actual birthday, no matter how much they yell at you to do it.
Oh yeah, and then you get all the notifications coming through going, happy birthday, and it's like, but I
have literal friends that I have had for 10 plus years who swear my birthday is completely different part of the year than it is, and they'll never know because it doesn't matter. But like, that's just, it is what it is. And if we taught kids that at a young age, why is this important? Why do you need to worry about this? That'll mean more in the beginning than it will when something already has happened.
Yeah.
And the other question is, when they originally asked for your birthday, why didn't they give some statement as to what it could be used for?
That is a very good point. Like, at what point is it your
I definitely
responsibility versus their responsibility?
Yeah. And so, it's getting harder and harder to find good solutions because, and thank you, Evan, for what you do, right? It's
Thank y'all.
the only way that
I think that's a good place. If you guys, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was like, it says my device may or may not be completely supported, so I need to switch to desktop. I'm like, well, if the mafia didn't switch off my internet. Yeah, I'm really glad. I'm super glad to know Evan and the rest of the great folks over at Recorded Future. There is something of a demo for donations thing that's happening right now, guys. If you guys know of someone that wants to see just a high level demo of the Recorded Future platform and some of their offerings that they can do, feel free to DM me later. We can set that up. The good folks at Recorded Future are, through Secure Nation, offering a donation back to the Innocent Lives Foundation to help support what it is that those folks are doing over there. For every demo, there will be a donation. It's a really cool thing. We're thinking of expanding it a lot bigger next year. I'm super excited. By the way.
Get all of the demos.
So we've already gotten a couple of, yeah. We've already had, I think, four demos signed up for in the last 2 weeks. So each one of those demos should be banking in several hundreds of dollars each 30 minutes. That's it, 30 minutes.
Awesome.
And
I know. I love you guys.
would
You're so
like
awesome.
to be super
Thank you.
extra awesome and help the ILF out, and you aren't in a spot where you can donate, then this is an excellent way to do it anyway. Right? It's a great opportunity so long as you have 30 minutes to spare, and Recorded Future is awesome. I don't see a lose in this. I'm just saying.
I mean,
Yeah.
Evan's cool. We like Evan, definitely.
I'm the lamest person at Recorded Future. But thank y'all. And y'all do great work too. And I'm happy to support IL.
So I'm gonna say the wasteland thing is that if Evan is the self-proclaimed lamest person at Recorded Future, okay?
Yeah. There's much cooler people there than me. But it's filled with incredible people.
So guys, to circle it all up and wrap it all the way around, okay? Your favorite apps, all of them, they all are completely watching you, surveilling what it is that you do, writing down those behavioral analytics, selling them to third parties that are then exchanging privacy policies through whatever, deal they have with the platforms that you're utilizing. And then that again gets transferred off to somebody else that's using your data. Be aware that your data is not yours. Somebody else is selling it. Just be aware is really the whole point of the entire discussion.
I'll throw in one more spin on this that could be for a whole other session sometime. If you think about it, because a lot of this is AI driven, how much of us are then being supported to think in an echo chamber, to just reinforce the ideas that we already have, we already think, which takes it away from being able to consider other people's points of view. That's a dangerous thing.
That is absolutely a research case that has been going on, and it's also definitely a case where you can we can definitely dig into it. It's going to take like 5 more hours. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, that's another podcast, but there's a good documentary out called Coded Bias that dives into that by Joy Buolamwini about how AI is just coded. It's just based on our historical data. And that's just sort of now just driving and reinforcing old stereotypes.
Yeah, we have to realize that. Think for yourselves, people.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much for hanging out this morning. We've hit our time wall. And I'm pretty sure there was somebody driving really slow outside my house just now, so I need to go check that out.
It wasn't me. This time.
If y'all don't hear from me, send help.
Well, maybe it's Backhoe Bob.
Bye, everybody. We'll see y'all next week. We've got another stream coming out next week. So stop by the events page, check it out. Go follow Sai on. She has a Twitch stream. She's all over the place, man. Go do that. And check out the ILF. We've got some links in the chat that happened here, and happy to talk to anybody about some of the offerings from Evan and his friends over at Recorded Future. And as always, Will McCullen, thank you so much for hanging out from the IT Center of Excellence with Pima Community College at your Arizona Cyber Warfare Range. There we go. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye, everybody.